How you doing, Nicholas? You enjoying this winter wonderland we have outside
Oh,
right now?
get this snow out of my face, dude. Do it, especially with the
Ah,
commute now and the train and stuff.
oh
Ugh.
yeah. Oh, get ready for that. By the way, your train being fucking delayed because there's a half an inch of fucking snow on the tracks.
Oh, that's gonna mess with TLDR, especially when I'm coming
Shh,
home.
please, nothing messes with TLDR. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, the Dork Shared Gooniverse and Geeks Worldwide Radio proudly presents to you the greatest, and I mean the greatest, podcasting team in the world. He's the Fry guy, Nick Friar. I'm the bad cracker, Dr. Joe. And joining us today is Chris Shime Time. Shime? Baby! How you doing?
What's up, boys?
What's up,
Yeah.
Shime? How are you this lovely evening?
I'm wonderful. It's been a hot minute since I've been on with the TLDR boys, so when I was invited, had to be a damn right yes.
And
Oh,
with that, we're going to kick you right off and bring you back in a few minutes. Ha ha, baby!
So,
That's what we call entertainment.
oh wow, look at you. Thank you for telling people what entertainment is. I appreciate it. If we have to tell them that, and we also have to tell them to do, Joe, make sure you subscribe to our audio channels, whether that's Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide Radio, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find us there. And the reason you want to do that, look, today, this is not an audio exclusive episode, but whenever we have guests on, people, creators in the comic book industry, whether it's up and comers or some of the Titans that we've had on and we'll have on again, along with the new Titans that we'll have on at some point. And no Attack on Titan, though, despite what we're talking about today. But that's the only way you're going to get those conversations is if you subscribe to our audio channel. And make sure when you do subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review. If you don't leave 5 stars, Joe's going to track you down, and it's going to get pretty ugly. But, Joe, today, no Fireside Chat, none of that this week. We have something special planned for you. Technically, still a mainline episode, but tell people what we're doing today.
Well, it's the Christmas season. It's the holiday season, I should say. And this month, we really wanted to do something special back in October, but we brag, we're talking to too many sweet guests, but we got a lot of fun things planned. And one of the things that we've had cooking for a while, and John Lee's friend of the show, really talked up a bunch of manga books. So I said, you know what? Let's do some manga. And
Manga.
So we've got a manga extravaganza, with our guy Scrim, who is a manga enthusiast. And so we got three books, baby, that we're going to be talking about with everyone. Very excited. So before we get to that, let's tackle what's new, baby.
Oh, okay. Well, you're feeling a little delicious today, it looks like. Why don't you take us through Marvel then?
All right. So wild week this week with books, right? We've got Marvel's got a ton, and there's one actually two books this week that I think appeal to us. But we have the Amazing Spider-Man issue 15, make that 3 books. Deadpool issue 2, Legion of X number 8. Friend of the show Rodney Barnes is adapting The Mandalorian. So we have The Mandalorian issue 6. We have Star Wars Bounty Hunter issue 29, Dark Web X-Men issue 1, Invincible Iron Man number 1, Savage Avengers issue 8, Planet Hulk World Breaker issue 2, Monica Rambeau number 1. And here's a book that I talked about during the solicit that kind of piqued my interest because I thought it would be a good holiday gift, a good stocking stuffer, if you will. Origins of Marvel Comics, Marvel Tales issue 1. So this is sort of a reprinting of the 4 sort of pillars that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had created when they first started Marvel, and it was Fantastic Four. It wasn't called Amazing Spider-Man then, but it was the first appearance the first appearance of Peter Parker. It was X-Men and Avengers. So that sounds like a good coffee table book, a coffee table book about coffee tables.
My personal favorite.
Right. A good stocking stuffer. So we got a lot from Marvel this week, but nothing that we're really reading.
No, but we do need to check out the Origins of Marvel Comic, Marvel Tales for our Christmas gift episode, which we are going to be doing next week. So anybody who's looking for last minute stuff, we will have you guys covered with some comics you can pick up for your kids, nieces and nephews, what have you. But we move over to DC. We got Wonder Woman 794 out this week. Batgirls 13. I am Batman 16. You are Batman 16.
We are Batman
16. And then Danger Street issue 1, which I don't even know what is that.
Tom King.
Okay. Dark Crisis Big Bang issue 1, Batman Inc. issue 3, Wildcats issue 2, Harley Quinn Uncovered issue 1, Batman Scooby Doo Mysteries issue 3, and then of course we finally got Batman Spawn issue 1. Real quick on this, it's like when we talk, Joe and I were talking about it before the show. He texted me, "What's your take on it?" You know what my take is. Like, Todd's writing it. It's going to have a certain ceiling on it. That's just what it is. It is set up for more, but from a visual standpoint, absolutely friggin' outstanding. Like, it's exactly what I wanted, and from a story standpoint, like, it's what I expected, so I'm fine with it. But I had fun with it. Nothing like world bending. Well, I mean, technically yes, but you know what I mean. But all around solid. Had a fun time. Glad I read it.
Yeah, so Capullo's art, he killed it. Absolutely killed it. And the issue I had was I thought this was a really good story, except it was a shitty one shot. Right? This is, like you said, it was setting up for more. This, if anything, this should have been like, you could have done this in a 3-story arc, right? You don't want to do a full thing. Like the way they wrote, it felt rushed. Again, like McFarlane's writing, it's not always my favorite. That's sort of why I fell off Spawn and have been sticking with King Spawn.
Yep.
And the Scorched. It's not to say that it's terrible. It's just, his writing is not always my cup of tea. And I really love the elements of this book from a story perspective, but it felt very rushed. And as I'm reading it, I'm going, man, this would have been like, they could have slowed this up a little bit. Didn't have to be 48, pages or 58 pages, however long it was. It could have been tighter. You could have done 3 issues, and it would have been fantastic.
I see, and I looked at it and thought that like 48 issues. I was like, oh, they're gonna giving you a full story and all of it. So at least there's that. But again, like it's not.
It was rushed. It was leaving you wanting more, and there was more potential there, right? Like
to me, it's always just like there's the dialogue can get clunky at times with Todd, and then when you look at the what is it, the narration too, sometimes it's just like, well, like what's going on here?
That was taking me out of it earlier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I understand that.
Yeah.
But that's why Gunslinger blows me away, because I don't find like that happens quite as much. And he is writing Gunslinger. But anyways, we digress because we do want to get through what's new here. So because we can start talking manga. Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue 18. This is the end of this as a title, right?
Yes, which is a bummer. So I mean, I knew it was coming to an end. That's been known for a while. Tom Taylor's been writing this, and this was a phenomenal issue. It's been a phenomenal series. I talked about it, however many mainline issues ago, but this arc in particular was really great because we've DC has been working on the return of Superman, return of Kal-El, and this arc really sort of focused on that. But the way that it ended and the way that it sets things up for John was fantastic. So the issue I have, however, is okay, we're ending it. They're bringing Superman back. We're going to be focusing back on Superman again. But John Kent's returning for his own 6-issue miniseries. So I find that could be confusing, and I find that a little irritating. I mean, at the end of the book, it says will be continued in Action Comics, and in the adventures of Superman, John Kent. Right? Why not just do what most books do? Go on a hiatus, right? You're taking your break, return with the same title name, so people are familiar. They'll see it, they'll recognize it, because someone might take a look, see it, like, oh, that's, I don't know what that is, and not read it. Whereas they see Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue 19. Oh, sweet, boom, and just do one more arc, 19 through 25. And then boom, that's it. You've told the story. Now you're separating it over 2 titles. Like it's stupid stuff like that. Like again, also with the dumb titles, that just like the little things that irritate me. Old man yells at cloud, yells at the sky, sort of thing. But like I don't know, like I think they could have kept it simple. They obviously know what they're going to do. The 6-issue, Tom Taylor's still writing it, right? Of course, I'm going to read the hell out of it, but like, boom, just make it the last arc. How hard is that?
I apparently too hard. Who knows? Getting titles right, and then just little things like this. It's just it seems to be a huge issue for people these days.
Right, because now a new reader's going to come in. They might not read it because they might like Superman, John Kent, and they won't know. It's just comics can get in their own way sometimes because you want to bring in new readers, and when you've got books that are several, whatever they might be, it's hard for people to want to start in the middle. And that's essentially what this is. It's just giving it a new title, hoping maybe to increase the sales by giving it a new title. I don't know.
Must be it. That's the only logical explanation.
Right?
So
silly stuff sense. Like that,
Yeah. Well, now why don't you unwind a little bit by taking me through what's out from Image this week?
Okay. So Image, we have Ice Cream Man issue 33. We have one of my favorite books of the year, 10,000 Black Feathers. That's written by Jeff Lemire with art by
Sorrentino.
Andrea Sorrentino. Thank you. Love Everlasting issue 5. Starhenge, the Dragon and the Boar issue 6. I think I shortened that one, and it's still too long.
Wow.
So this was weird. So League of Comic Geeks, I think, is all over the place because what they have listed for Image versus what we got from Image, wildly different because we did not receive Nightclub issue 1, Hell to Pay issue 2, Art Brute issue 1. We talked about this in the solicit. This is written by M. Maxwell Price, who also writes Ice Cream Man. We have Two Graves issue 2. We have Shirtless Bear Fighter, volume 2, issue 5. Gospel issue 2, and 3 Keys issue 3. And the one book that we both read, the series that I talked about way back out of the show, Nick's talked about it during a trade. We love Radiant Black issue 20. Nicholas, take us away.
Yes. So the big thing for me coming out of this that I just wanted to touch on. Actually, there's 2 things. One, I mean, the robots that these things are fighting in the course of all this, like it's very much like I don't know how they're going to get through this because basically you have one character who got the job done and all this without that individual being involved. Like they don't get to where they need to. And then also Radiant Yellow, we only see him briefly in all this, and that's the biggest thing for me is like with him. Because now we get an idea of how he experiences time. It's kind of like a Dr. Manhattan type of situation. And as we get a glimpse of what he's experiencing now, like how he's seeing the world as it is, what's going to be happening in like the next however many years. And I mean, time can change. It's not like set in stone and everything like that, but it all looks very grim and doesn't look like there's a resolution. There's got to be something that happens with Nate in all this because he's with him and Marshall sharing the powers and whatnot at this point. I can't imagine it's going to stick that way. It's got at some point it has to adjust. And with when we saw Radiant Yellow a while back when he crossed paths with Marshall and Nate, like there was a whole issue. So
I still haven't read it because I can't get my hands on a physical copy, and I can't read it digitally because it's done like side scrolling.
But before that, even I'm talking when there was that one where they crossed paths with him, and he was like something. One of those two, it seemed like was not supposed to be there or whatever.
Oh, right.
So that through. So I don't know if that means like Nate's going to become, or Marshall's going to become a problem, or Nathan's going to become a problem. So either way, like I love what the series has been. Great, we've been really enjoying it, and right now it's getting to this point where I feel like a few things are about to come to a head. So I'm very excited for that as we get. So what we're a few issues away for. Yeah, we're just starting this 4th arc at this point.
I think so. Yeah.
But anyways, let's fly through these other ones so we can get Shine back in and start talking some mangas. So from Boom, books that Joe's reading: Grimm issue 6, Wind, the Throne in the Sky issue 5, Specs 2, and then I have called dibs. You hear that? I've called dibs.
I didn't fucking read it. Calm your tits.
On A Vicious Circle, issue 1. From AWA, we got the Resistance Universe, the Origins trade paperback, which you talked about Axel Alonso a little while back on the show. Great for people who are new to the AWA universe. You also got New Think Volume 1 from Dark Horse, Assassin's Apprentice issue 1. IDW, actually got a lot from them. TMNT Armageddon Game Alliance issue 2. My Little Pony Classics Reimagined issue 2. Star Trek Resurgence issue 2. Transformers Shattered Glass issue 2. Volume 2 issue 5. Crashing issue 4. Then we got from Dynamite, Red Sonja, Hell Sonja, issue 1, Titan, Blade Runner 2039, issue 1, Skybound, of course, Prince Through Image, Dark Ride, issue 3, and then from Comixology, we got Retroverse, issue 1. And Joe, that is it for comics on this episode of TLDR, because today we're a couple of manga mutts, and we're going to bring Shime back in to join us. Shime, how you been doing back there waiting?
I'm great, guys. I'm excited. I'm locked and loaded, ready to go today.
Mr.
How do you feel about the length of comic book titles, Scrib?
The length of comic book titles, it's, you know, I'm neither here nor there. If you want it to be long, be long. If you don't, you don't. I don't care. Anime titles are long too. Like there's one anime title, the Daily Life of the Immortal King. That's really long, but you know what? I don't care.
Well,
that's short compared to some of these fucking Dark Crisis titles we've been getting from DC.
True.
Fucking semicolons and colons. I don't even know half the fucking.
Yeah, but who doesn't love a good colon? You know.
Well,
you mean you do need a good colon? That's true.
Yeah. So, with that said, welcome, buddy. We're happy to have you. So, I'm gonna kick things off here with a book that good friend John Lees recommended, and I'll be talking about 20th Century Boys. Written and drawn by Naoki Urasawa. And I've been doing some reading about this guy. He is fairly prolific. I obviously new to manga here, and it was interesting. Urasawa started as an artist, and which is bananas, because after reading this book, I mean, his writing, his style, his art's fantastic, but the way that he writes is really next level. So quick letterer, Steve Dutro. Synopsis. Humanity, having faced extinction at the end of the 20th century, would not have entered the new millennium if it weren't for them. In 1969, during their youth, they created a symbol. In 1997, as a coming disaster slowly starts to unfold, the symbol returns. This is the story of a group of boys who tried to save the world. And it's a nice, concise, synopsis without really giving anything away. Sometimes we can read these things, you're like, well, that's you just fucking gave everything away. So this was 11 volumes, and for those watching, I mean, that's one volume. That's a thick,
crazy.
It says 416 pages.
You read those things that huge, and you're reading them backwards essentially the whole time. I got a friggin' headache doing this. I don't know how you do it all the time.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, so I like to do it a lot on the internet because they make it a little bit easier. Instead of having to actually turn pages, you're just scrolling, and so it's more natural. You're still reading right to left though, which is a pain in the butt. But outside of that, I mean, most manga books too aren't necessarily that big. Like one volume is freaking big. But
that helps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 416 pages. I mean, when it comes to me keeping track of how many comics I've read, I mean, that's definitely more than a few, right?
Yeah,
and I'm probably hitting close to 1,000 now at this point. But anyways,
for real.
So as I mentioned, this was my first deep dive into manga, and I definitely had texted Shime and said, "How the hell do I read this?" And he's like, well, you go right to left, but it's not just right to left. You've also you got to go right to left and then down and across. It's so it took me a little while to really get going, and that was just because I had to get used to it. And so when I've read the first chapter, and then I didn't pick it up again for a while. And then when I was away in Nova Scotia, I finished this thing off in 2 days. Once I kind of got the hang of it, and after a couple of Bing searches, on a diagram showing me where to go, bam, I started to fly through this. But this, I've got a ton of notes here, but I think I'm just gonna go off the dome here for a bit. This was such a good book, and it's just the first volume, 416 pages. And it really is we're so used to reading comic books, Nick, right? Where we've got arcs, right? Where they're 4, 5, 6 issues long. And within that 6 issues, we get a complete story, right? And that's sort of what we're used to. And then you read something like Saga, right? That's what, 60 issues now, or whoever, 70, whatever it might be, like that's telling a longer story, but there's still like these nice tight, arcs. Whereas at least with 20th Century Boys, it really does read like a novel, right? 460.
Yeah, I noticed that with mine too.
Yeah, like at 416 pages, that's we're approaching Lord of the Rings territory there. It's Tolkien territory. It's longer than Tolkien, to be honest with you. And so, but you're reading it and you're looking at the pictures and you're enjoying it like a comic book, but it really does feel like you're reading a novel here. And one of the things that I loved was by the end of this first volume, 400 and whatever pages later, that's when you start to get a reveal of who the antagonist might be. Right. So you're reading it and the pacing is great. You're just flying through it like you really were reading a really good book. And I just found that fascinating because it's such a completely different style than what we're used to. A, with comic books, but B, with novels, because novels don't have pictures, right? So we're getting sort of like the best of both worlds here. And I think that's where Urasawa really shined, or shines, I should say.
Shines.
He scrims.
There you go.
Because the way he layers his storytelling, the way he writes his characters, the depth that he throws in there is absolutely fantastic. And he's leaving these breadcrumbs. It's at its heart, 20th Century Boys is it's sort of like verges on the a post-apocalyptic kind of thing to it, even though we don't get that in this first volume, but that's where you kind of feel like things are going. But it's like if you were to take the movie Stand By Me and just age all the characters 30 years and then have them and then tell that story, because he goes back and forth a lot, right, between these characters when they're younger in the 60s and then where they are now, in the late 90s, and sort of how they kind of come back together. They've still remained close, even though kind of going their own ways. And, so there's a lot of that back and forth. And in doing so, we learn a lot about them, but there's a lot of breadcrumbs. There's a lot of clues being dropped. So it's also a mystery and there's a crime going on at the same time. And it's all sort of woven together. So when you get to the end of this first volume, that's when sort of, the proverbial bomb drops. And I always talk about like, the purpose of a first issue is for it to sort of sink its teeth into you. And that's what happens here. But instead of having it happen at page 26, 27, 28, it happens at 416. But it's so good that you just keep reading it and you just keep going, and you kind of get lost in this world and with these characters. And so what it revolves around, the main character is Kenji. And he's this, when you first meet him, he's this middle-aged, this middle-aged man running his family's grocery, store, which he sort of sold to this larger corporate chain. And, he's got a baby sort of in one of those papooses. And so what it's revolving around is that his sister has sort of mysteriously sort of disappeared. She left him with her child. He has no idea where she is. He's trying to find her. His mom's a cranky old broad on his ass because he's mismanaging the grocery store. He never should have sold it in the first place. The store manager's always busting his balls because he's carrying a baby around with him, and he's scaring customers away. And so like that's sort of your character, and all the while he's like, you feel like he's having this midlife crisis because in the flashbacks as a kid when he's younger, all he wants to be is a rock and roll star, right? And dreams of being a rock and roll musician and shit like that. Now he's this sort of the store clerk, store manager, if you will. And so where we go, is that it's a lot of like little seemingly unrelatable coincidences that all really come together, and that's sort of what's happening. And like I said, like the pacing of this book is perfect because there's never any ruts, there's never any slow bits. And so he's going to make a delivery to a person that he makes deliveries to all the time, but the person's not there, and he notices this weird looking symbol, this eye sort of symbol. And it's like seems familiar to him, but he can't quite place it. And then like a couple of pages later, you see the cops showing up at that same place, and they go and the person that he was making the delivery to is missing. And so now like he's sort of getting unexpectedly intertwined into this random crime where you know, the cops think he might be a suspect. You know, it's like it's sort of really, you know, really interesting. And then one of their childhood friends up and commits suicide, which is out of character for him. And they find this symbol again. And so him and his friends are at the funeral. They're trying to like, what the hell's going on here? My sister's missing. You know, this guy wouldn't have committed suicide. That's weird. Like this person, like, and so like it gets really complex, but it's never confusing. And then the way that everything sort of unfolds as we go through, and then we learn about this cult that's sort of sweeping, you know, the region that they're in, and learning more about that, and all the side characters. It's really fascinating because, like I said, you're getting crime stuff, you're getting cult stuff, you're getting, you know, these great flashbacks with these great sort of pop culture references of the 60s, and you get great character development, and so it's I just can't state just how well, you know, this is written. And I don't know, you know, what I'm sure there's all different types of manga, just like there's all sort of different types of comics. So like for me, this feels like a certain, you know, I don't know how you would categorize this, you know, sort of in the manga world, but like I said, this really does feel like fiction, like you're writing, you know, reading a novel versus, say, I haven't read Attack on Titan, but from the way Shime has described it, it's like you've got like the big, scary, horrific fucking monsters and weirdo gonzo shit that's going on, you know. And this to me just feels very polished. It's sort of like, this is, like I said, would be a book that, like, if I had read the synopsis at Barnes and Noble and it was like a new fiction, I grab and read it. Like that's just kind of how this feels. And I to do that in a comic book form or manga form, you know, I think is really, you know, an achievement. And
Joe, just because you had mentioned it, like how they categorize a lot of manga is generally like into 4 different, I guess, demographics, and then after that there's a million different subsets. So it's like shonen, shoujo, seinen, and josei are the 4 types of like manga demographics, more or less. So shonen is like, you know, your normal like boys comics kind of action adventure type of deal. Seinen, which is what this would be part of, is more targeting that like older male, like adult male type of genre. And so then within that, there's a bunch of other demographics. Like you'll hear people talk about mecha, which is like your Gundams and things like, or your Gurren Lagans and things like that. Or your harem animes where it's like just a bunch of pretty girls, or it's cooking anime, which is awesome, by the way.
Or Friar's favorite hentai, or however you pronounce it.
Hentai, yeah. Hentai is something completely different. But yeah, so there's so many different types, but the 4 general I guess demographics would be shonen, shoujo, seinen, and josei.
And the Pussycats.
There it is.
I was waiting for it. It's like when I heard it the first time, I was like, "Oh man, I missed an opportunity here."
But like, you know, and I love that Stand By Me aspect of this book, where you've got like 3 core friends, and they're the, you know, as adults, they're trying to figure out what happened to their friend that committed suicide, because they just don't believe like he would do something like that. And then the flashback to when they were kids, and you know, like how they would, you know, like there was a core of 4 of them, and then they brought in an outsider, and sort of like just how they all sort of fit together in that dynamic, and has that very sort of Stand By Me feel to it. And then all the shit, like I said, the breadcrumbs that get planted, you know, in those flashbacks, that when they finally come to fruition, I mean, the payoff is just chef's kiss. And so like, I'm only going to mention the two of the characters, because there's a lot of, you know, little side characters, but I don't want to spoil anything, because anyone that wants to read this for the first time, I want them to sort of experience it like I did, and just sort of when you get introduced to everyone and how it all fits and how it all comes together, like, you know, it was so good, like experiencing that for the first time. You know, it was excellent. So, but you have Kenji, he's the main character, the main, you know, protagonist. Like I said, his sister goes missing, leaves him with her child. What the hell's going on there? And then, you know, like I said, he's like, he's aspiring rock star that never really happened, and now he's a middle-aged man, sort of you're running a grocery store that's sort of been thrust into this like really involved story, involving this cult and everything that goes on with that. Absolutely fantastic. And then you have the friend who is the cult leader. And so throughout the first volume, people talk about the friend, but you never see him or her, right? You never see the character. You know very little about the character, but the clues are there, if you read it. And then finally, somewhere around page 350 or so, you start to go, oh, no, get the fuck, oh shit, right? And then boom, it ends, and you have that moment where like, I was already in, right? You can't read something beyond 100 pages and not be in, right? Like there's that old adage with books, like read the first 100 pages. If you're not in by then, stop reading the book. It's not for you. But if you get past that 100-page mark, right. So we're well past that, but then you get that moment in the way this first volume ends, and then it picks right up with the second volume. Like, fuck, yes, inject into my fucking veins. It is so friggin' good. So like, I can't recommend this book enough. You asked Shime before we went on, and I think it'd be a good question to ask him again at the end, or we can discuss that right now. But like, entry books for manga, like, Shime, you said, and you can elaborate on this, like, well, it really sort of depends on your preference. As you mentioned a few moments ago, there's all these different subsets. But like, for me, knowing anybody that likes a good whodunit, who likes good crime, who likes good mystery, who loves good just overall plot construction, character development, like, I'm an absolute manga noob. And once I figured out how to fucking read it, I had this thing read within 3 days.
Yeah, I wanna make a suggestion to you, because I know if you like a whodunit, I have to tell you, you have to go read Erased. Erased it's quick. It's only like 8 volumes, so it's not very long. Yeah, it's no. But ultimately, it's not very long. But it was one of the first animes actually that I watched, and then go back and read the manga as well. It's a great story. I highly recommend it. So and it's nothing too fantastical, or you don't have to suspend too much disbelief. It's very much that mystery thriller type deal. But there is like a little science fiction-y element tied into it, and I couldn't recommend it enough. I think it's an awesome, again, another starting manga for you if you're really into the mystery thrillers and the whodunits. I think Erased is an excellent way to jump in.
Well, written down.
So I'm curious with this too. Shime, we, Joe and I are pretty into the weeds when it comes to the comic stuff now, so we have a general idea of how things kind of function for some of the creators and whatnot. But I look at this book that Joe's talking about today, and then I look at the one I'm talking about, and this is probably because John Lee's recommended both of these to us, prior, venturing into the same creator. But Naoki Urasawa is the creator on both of these series. And I just did a quick search on when Joe's was running, when his his manga was running, and ours both crossed paths in terms of like when they were published and everything like that. So it's the same creator, and we talk about it how, like, yeah, if you're a writer, you can bounce around to a bunch of different titles. If you're an artist, you're usually doing, for comics, you're usually doing one thing. You can do one thing, and then you're doing covers, variants for other people and whatnot. You're not usually doing 2 books, but writing and drawing 2 books is, to me, that's unfathomable. So I'm curious, is that like a normal thing that you see with manga?
So not as much. No, like, so a lot of the guys are really kind of, at least their big name stories are just kind of, that's their title. Like Masashi Kishimoto just sticks to Naruto. Like, that was his thing. And the guy who wrote Dragon Ball, his name is escaping me at the moment, sticks to Dragon Ball. And they're not jumping into a bunch of different things. Even like a guy like Makoto Shinkai, who makes some of the most beautiful anime films I've ever seen, is like, it's just, he'll make a movie, and then it'll be 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, he'll come up with another one. It's not like multiple hands in multiple cookie jars type of deal. So for Urasawa to do something like that is very impressive. And kind of, again, it just like in the comic world, I don't think it's very natural.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's insane. I mean, and then look, I know with this too, it's like, as I'm reading mine, I'll get to mine later, but like, from Joe sounds of it's like these things are, as much as they're translated from different language, it's still like a very quick read, especially if you're not getting into. Is narration normal in manga? Because Joe, I'm assuming you didn't have narration in yours, right?
If I did, it was very little.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't have any in mine.
Yeah, so from the ones that I've read, not really, no. A lot of the time it's very much just kind of your normal comic panels without those narration blurbs. Like it's more so, it's like Joe said, it's like taking a novel but then adding pictures and really making it like a legit like story.
Yeah. And I mean, that's in comics. I mean, those are generally the titles. I feel like you can usually more often be good when you take out narration. You have to really do a good job in comics to have the narration fit and not, for me, have it be somewhat of a distraction or detractor when I'm reading it. But Joe, this sounds great. It's funny because we got, was it 20th Century Men from Image
20th
Comics?
Century.
No, from Image Comics. It's going on right now. I think.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw this, and I was like, wait a minute, did they try and repurpose it? So yeah, that very much threw me off. But
it's a very intricate story, and all the different things and how they all come together, man.
Yeah. And Sean, so now obviously normally we have it where the person talking about the book, the other guy has not read the book, but it's a different situation with you here. Have you read this book too?
No, so I haven't read it. I've heard of 20th Century Boys. I've heard good things about it. I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and read it yet. No, those. Okay. So it will now be on my list. So thank you, Doc.
Oh, look at that. All right. Well, then why don't you tell us about a book that a manga that you have read before?
Yes. So the manga that I have read that I'm bringing to you guys today is Kame ga Kill. It's written by Takahiro, and it was drawn by Tetsuya Tashiro. Ultimately, it's about a young boy named Tatsumi who is from an impoverished village and dreams of grander things, right? Dreams of bringing money and prosperity to his village, and sets out with his two friends, Iyasu and Seo, to try and do that. And they head to the capital of the empire. But along the way, they're attacked by bandits and they're split up. And so Tatsumi is forced to make his way to the capital alone. He then fails to make it into the army, is swindled out of his money, and is kind of just left on the side of the road when a seemingly gracious and kind noble comes up and takes him in and kind of welcomes him into their castle and feeds him and gives him a place to sleep. Well, that's kind of when everything takes a turn, because that night, within the castle, a group of assassins known as Night Raid appears and kills literally everyone. Just slaughters everyone. And come to find out that family of nobles that took in Tatsumi was planning on torturing him and killing him, because they make a habit of picking up just random peasants from outside of the city, or even the poorer ones in the city, taking them in, torturing them, and killing them, to the point where they have a giant ass torture chamber. And come to find out, they tortured and killed his friends Iyasu and Seo. And that's kind of what leads Tatsumi on this road. He ends up actually joining this group of assassins known as Night Raid. Night Raid isn't just a group of assassins. They're actually a group that leads a revolutionary force that plans to overthrow the capital and the corrupt Prime Minister Honest, who leads them. And so going forward, Tatsumi is dealing with constant battles between the empire and trying to make peace in this very corrupt and horrible city and empire. And he learns of things known as Tegu, or imperial arms, which are basically relics that bestow special powers onto the people who wield them. And those relics can take on the form of weaponry or gadgets. They can also be accessories that grant you certain powers. And so Tatsumi joins Night Raid, and it's the story of him trying to battle through this corruption and understand really kind of how bad things are on the inside, when all he ever witnessed outside was his poor village, and how things can actually be far, far worse.
It's Great Expectations, but like a horror story.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about this is it is
sounds good.
It is as shonen as shonen gets, but it has this really dark, like horror element to it that I think is super, super exciting for someone like me who's older and likes those horror type of things. This is a something I would recommend to someone like a Rich Keefe who loves horror movies. And I'm like, okay, if you want to get in, like, this is perfect. It's action, it's adventure, it's that sci-fi fantasy, but it is dark. It gets very, very dark, which is it's really, really cool. So the characters you meet, this was 15 volumes that ran from 2010 to 2016. It's not super long. It's not super short. It's like 78 chapters, I think, in total.
Wait a minute, but how big are these like volumes we're talking here? Are they like Joe and my books that we have? Because mine's a long ass one too.
They're thick, but they're not like novel size thick. Like they're I don't have one
like this right here. Volume 1 of 20th Century Boys. That's a solid doc. That's 2 inches right
there. Lift it up a little, Joe. We can't see it.
Yeah, you were holding it. Yeah, so it's definitely smaller than that.
Okay.
And the chapters aren't all that long either. So I actually I have read this now multiple times on the internet. It's nice and easy. Like I said, sometimes it's easy just to scroll and read right to left than it is to actually flip the pages. And so I actually have a link to this, so I can send it to you guys if you're interested in reading it. So ultimately the main characters are Tatsumi and the members of Night Raid, which would be the katana wielding Akame. Hence, there's a title, Akame got killed. There you go. The lioness Leone, the sniper Mine, the scissor wielding Shelly, the string man Lubbock, the armor wielding Bulat, and the leader of Night Raid and Agenda, a former general in the Imperial Army. And the two main protagonists that you're going to meet here are General Esdeath and the Prime Minister Honest. And those are the two that, especially Esdeath, especially when it comes to the fight scenes and stuff, Esdeath is the primary antagonist that this book tends to deal with.
How wild do you have to be to wield scissors?
Dude, it's dope. And they're not just your normal scissors, Doc. They are like massive, like two hands,
like the ones they used at like groundbreaking ceremonies.
Yes, exactly. Like when you cut a ribbon, those giant scissors, that's what I'm talking about.
Jesus.
Wow.
It's dope. It's so cool. And so Tatsumi has
who names their kid Mine. I'm a little thrown by that.
So that's the cool thing about manga and anime is it's a lot of different names than what we're accustomed to. Very much like across the board, there are so many different names. And it's a girl, and her name is Mine. So
I'm here for her.
It's better than Apple, or
we got Mine, and you got Lubbock, like Lubbock, Texas. I mean,
like Lubbock, Texas, exactly.
The armpit of America. Confirmed. I can tell you guys.
Hey now, right? We might be big in Texas. You don't know.
Hey, it's not. Hey, no. Anybody in Texas is going to be appreciative that I differentiate between the two. Trust me, Lubbock is not Dallas or Fort Worth or Austin.
So I mean, this book is awesome. I love this story. I think it's so well told. Again, if you are a fan of really cool illustrations, I think this is also up your alley. Like if you enjoy the story, but if you go to comics and manga to really appreciate the illustrators, I think this is a story that would also be very good for you, because I think the fight scenes are so well done. I think the relationship and the characters is really well built, and you kind of, it's this really, really cool journey that seems to happen way too fast. But it is, it's awesome. I cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're both sucked in after hearing that. I mean, just your explanation of the whole plot and everything. It's friggin' nuts. But one thing I'm kind of, again, looking at the nittier grittier stuff of all this, I always thought that mangas were, I'm sure there can be exceptions, but I thought generally speaking, mangas were the same writer and artist. Like it's all just one creator for the series. And this is like, boom, you come right out the gates with a team. Is it more of a mix usually?
Yeah. So I'd have to actually go do some research on it. I don't know how often that it's a team or not, but I know that Takahiro had the story planned out. He had an idea of exactly what he wanted to write. And so like how they went about doing it is he would write basically a giant storyboard, like a novel version of it. And then Tashiro would take it and then illustrate it. and they would trim it down and make it fit more appropriately for the manga itself. And so they are a unique duo in that aspect where they very much were a team in this.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in. You guys got a couple good ones, and then it's time, Joe. Unless you had a question for Shime about his.
No. I mean, it sounds fantastic. Again, it's my first dip into this, so having this be my first experience versus, say, trying to pick Attack on Titan or something wildly different. Like,
Yeah.
I love good storytelling. That's always going to be my the thing that I really grabs me. I mean, the art, obviously, like we've talked about it, like bad art can take us out of a book just as easily as bad storytelling. But I could sometimes, and I'm not saying that's the case with this book. I'm just saying, like, when there's really good storytelling, like it pulls me in. And both of these books so far, like, right up my alley.
That's one of the reasons, like, I chose a comic I kill. I think if you're gonna give someone a manga or an anime to jump into first, it needs to be completed, and that's one of the most difficult things. Is you're looking at like they call it like the big three, which are things like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, and then even prior to that, you're looking at things like Dragon Ball Z. All of those things are they're completed. Well, One Piece isn't, but they are just massive undertakings. Even just watching it on television there are, I want to say, over 1,000 episodes of Naruto at this point.
Really?
Or at least 600. I know there's over 1,000 episodes of One Piece, and that's still running. They're just getting into like the best parts of One Piece, and they're 1,000 episodes in. And so there is just you have to really kind of, if you want somebody to love it and enjoy it, you have to kind of get them in the right way first. And that's why I think A Comic Got Killed is just one of those things where it's one of the perfect stepping stones for me when entering into the manga anime world.
It sounds like both your books, quite honestly, are. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think mine necessarily is. And the book I'm talking about today is Monster, which is also by Naoki Urasawa. And John Lees, again, recommended this book to us. Now, before I go any further, I want everybody to know, if you are interested in hearing what John Lees had to say, do not go back and listen to what he had to say about this, because he spoiled the thing that, yes, you can find in the synopsis and everything, but for me, again, as someone new to manga, like Joe talked about it with 20th Century Boys, you got your like big twist right at the very end, but you didn't know. Unless John said something and we're just not remembering. He didn't telegraph that to you or tell you exactly what was going to happen. Like,
that's the beautiful thing about being an old Nicholas. I forget most of this shit.
Right. Well, I unfortunately don't forget some of these things. And there was an important twist with this character that I was waiting for throughout as I'm reading this book. And this thing is a little bit longer than yours, Joe, even though size doesn't necessarily matter. At least some say that. I don't know. But this is 421 versus 416. So about an inch difference. So whatever. But anyway,
that's a very generous inch.
Sometimes
that matters a lot.
Yep. But anyways, so I'm reading this, and it's like not midway through until I get midway through that, like, I get what John Lees was talking about, that specific detail. And had I not known that about that detail and just know this is a good book, this is a good creator, give it a look. There's a crazy twist, like in the first volume, whatever. Like, then I think that would have bothered me less. But as I'm reading all this, like, when does this happen? When does this thing? And then something pops up, and I'm like, okay, like, I get this, but how far am I away from this, like, transpiring even more? Because I knew some things that were happening. So that did annoy me a little bit. I'm not going to mention the specifics. Obviously, I'm speaking in vagaries now because I want you guys to be able to enjoy the whole thing. And I think that'll make a huge difference for anybody else reading this, but it is a little bit slower paced. So the synopsis, this Naoki Urasawa's unforgettable thriller follows a brilliant doctor's journey into the darkest depths of the human soul. Conspiracy and serial murder open the door to a compelling, intricately woven plot in this masterwork of suspense. Everyone faces uncertainty at some point in their lives. Even a brilliant surgeon like Kenzo Tenma is no exception. But there's no way he could have known that his decision to stop chasing professional success and instead concentrate on his oath to save people's lives would result in the birth of an abomination.
I remember now. I remember
Yeah.
what he said. Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So the questions of good and evil now take a terrifyingly real dimension. So you remember, Joe. So like it's and now you have the benefit of knowing how long it takes if we end up swapping these up and everything like that, because you can with yours, Joe. Was it available? It was available at Newberry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's where I got mine as well. Shime, do you know like most mangas available at Newberry? I would assume that yours is, right?
Yeah, I would assume that it is. It's extremely popular, so it should probably be there. That or like a Barnes and Noble at least.
Yeah, and it seems like local bookshops too, like small independent ones are starting to carry manga more and more, because I know we have one in Nashville that has some of that. But this one is 18 volumes, ran from 1994 to 2001. And again, when we talk about like the ridiculousness of the how mangas are done, I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, you drew all of this, you wrote all of this. This is 400 plus pages, and how do you do 18 volumes in 7 years of this shit? And then on top of that, you also did the book that Joe talked about today, and 11 volumes of that shit.
And George R.R. Martin can't even give us a new fucking Game of Thrones book.
Don't get me started.
Oh. Maybe we should actually get you started a little bit later. But so there, we're talking about anime too. I know, Shai, obviously you're big into that. This had 74 episodes from April 2004 to September 2005. So 74 episodes. You're talking about thousands for some of these other things. What was it? One shot, or what was it called?
One Piece.
One Piece. Okay. So
Yes.
is that like also like, is it of a similar like, is it superhero-y like Naruto? And
so basically One Piece is about a man named Monkey D. Luffy, who has special powers thanks to a thing called a gum fruit, and his goal is to be the king of the pirates. And so he faces off against literally the anime versions of Blackbeard and Whitebeard, and like he has his own crew and they have their own ship, and like it's dope. It's really cool.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah, it's
you and your crew versus me and the revolution.
My crew. Yeah, it's dope. Like, and there's a character named Zoro, who is part of Luffy's crew, and he is awesome. They're known as the Straw Hat Pirates because Luffy wears his classic straw hat. And so, if you ever see like a super spindly anime character with a straw hat or red shirt, that's Luffy, and he is the main character of One Piece.
I have seen that guy before. Okay, I didn't know that. All right, okay, understood. So, something that can definitely appeal to kids. It sounds like too.
Yes? One Piece very much so leans more kid friendly than some of the other.
I would say gum fruit. Yeah, would be kiddish.
Yeah. So, but when I hear those three, because I think of Dragon Ball Z, I think of Naruto. When I think of anime, and then obviously now this is run so long, so maybe it's not fair to necessarily compare Monster to these when you're looking at episode runs.
Definitely not. Like, they're totally different things. Like, again, like A Comic Got Kill has a 24 episode run. There's plenty of animes that have 1 or 2 seasons worth. There's some that have just your one like 12 episode season. There's some, again, like Naruto is 600 episodes or whatever. One Piece has 1,000. So to have 74 episodes?
74 episodes.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good run. Normally, I would say that's like 3 seasons worth of anime, give or take a few episodes.
Yeah, and I was talking to another friend of the show, Joe. Like after we found out about Monster from John Lee's, I was talking to another friend of the show about manga stuff, and then this book also came up, and she told me about how how great Monster is and everything, how like it messed up and whatnot. So it didn't. I as much as I had my frustration with this series, because of the way it was conveyed to us and not knowing when that like crazy twist happens. It was a little bit frustrating, but I still really enjoy this. It's clearly still very well written. And it's, when Chip Zdarsky's talked to us about manga in the past, and Shime, you kind of alluded to some of it a little bit with the food manga, like it can get very niche with mangas. And this kind of is that, so much so that when I was doing additional research after having finished the volume, I saw that that Urasawa was having a tough time like getting this made, not because he didn't have the story, but because it was either his publisher or editor or something to that effect was saying people aren't going to read this because it's all about like doctor stuff, and it's not like it's about moving up in the ranks and the corruption that's in hospitals and everything like that. So but that still interested me. Like I flew through this shit. Like you talk about reading it in, what'd you do in 2 days, Joe? You said
2-3 days, something like that. Yeah.
I was like 3 days reading through this whole thing. And again, like they're very much thrown off like you about the style and how to read it and everything, but it was still very quick read. Very interesting stuff. And Dr. Kenzo Tenma is an interesting main character. There are other characters that kind of get thrown in the mix, but you see some fly out really fast. There's some who I don't want to talk about them because their importance increases over the course of the first volume and everything. So I don't want to spoil things for you guys. But I will say, when you get to the reveal, the big twist midway through that I unfortunately knew and now Joe has remembered.
I'll not forget again.
Okay, good. It is very much so a jaw dropper, and you do not see it coming unless you already knew what it was. So I can't recommend this enough as well. I do think, excuse me, fellas.
Jesus.
Oh God.
Nick,
Hack it up a
COVID on air.
Pardon me. So I do think that your books are a little bit easier for people who are new to manga. But I think once you've given one of theirs a look, guys, pick up Monster, because that's another one too that's very easily accessible at Newberry. I saw it right away, and I think it's something for not for kids necessarily either. Like it will require a little bit of patience or something to that degree. But it's not like the action and stuff like that. There's nothing like crazy like that. It's more who done it, and then wait, what the fuck's going on, and how did we get here? Kind of deal.
What I'll say, and I won't give away what the detail is, but when John was describing this book, the detail that he discussed when he was describing this book, that was the selling point.
Yes.
And so like looking and reading, listening to the synopsis, yeah, it sounds interesting, but that synopsis doesn't do what I feel like it does the book justice.
It was in there, Joe. I took it out.
Oh,
they had the detail in there, but I again, it's just like, I know there's 18 volumes, but to me, as I'm reading it, I'm sorry, it took like 150 pages to get there, and I was like, when is this going to happen? Like, you're going to tell me this
sounds like a you problem.
Maybe it is. I mean, maybe it is, but now I'm trying. There is a twist that's worth the weight of me not telling you right now. I promise you. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so you got to build up to it, Nicholas. It's not like they tell you who Smeagol is at the first few pages of Lord of the Rings. You don't find out until the third book, right? You got to build up to these things. You don't want the goods given to you right away. Why buy the milk when you get the cow for free, or however the hell it goes? You get a good look at a cow by sticking it up a butcher's ass. Wait, no.
Sounds like you're trying to kiss John Lee's ass, is what it sounds like to me. Yeah.
I'm trying to get people back on the show, Nicholas.
Yeah.
You keep alienating people and studios. It's a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, that is it for our Manga Madness. Maybe we'll do it again though, Joe, because I think that I know, because I was having issues finding this at first because I didn't know it was all at Newberry. But there is another book that I was interested in reading that I'd heard about. Definitely a little bit more violent. I'll tell you guys about it afterwards. But
can I make some suggestions for anybody out there interested in starting?
Yes, please do.
A couple different genres. So if you're interested in the food genre, by the way, Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, awesome. Loved it. It's just I literally have a list, by the way, here of just like anime and manga that I have watched or read, and I have it ranked based on hot dog scores. I don't know. Do you guys score based on hot dog scores here? Do you have a certain way you're scoring things?
We don't score. We
it's
just
basically
binary, like read it or
Doc
don't.
just goes like it stinks or it does.
Okay, read it or don't. Got it. So Shokugeki no Soma for me is just, it's a fun thing to enjoy. If you're interested in trying something like that, I recommend it. Doc, if you actually wanted to get your daughter into a little cultural experience of understand when she's a good reader of like watching an anime, Belle on HBO Max is really, really good. It's kind of a play on the Beauty and the Beast type story, but in anime form, and it's really, really well done. The animation is gorgeous.
Okay.
So I can't recommend that enough.
Pop that on tonight.
If you're interested in trying a sports manga or anime, I highly recommend Haikyuu. It is my #1 rated anime of all time. It's my absolute favorite. You would never expect that a volleyball anime manga would be great, and it is superb.
Wisconsin volleyball? Because I'll tell you, I'm into that one.
Well, yeah, I bet you are. And then the other one I would love to mention is Tokyo Revengers, another kind of thriller with a bit of a sci-fi twist. It's about this young boy who kind of ends up joining a gang, and in order to save his girlfriend from middle school, he's able to like travel back in time, and in order to save his girlfriend from middle school of dying when she's an adult, he has to join this gang and like rise his way through the ranks. And it's a really, really cool story. And it's super well done. So I highly recommend that one as well.
And I'll make a comic book recommendation to you, Tokyo Ghost.
Tokyo Ghost.
I think
you know, how many fucking times are you going to steal my books and pass them off as recommendations to people?
Tokyo Ghost.
I think he would like that, right?
I'm sure he would. Yes.
Sean Murphy, who wrote it? Is that
Rick Remender?
Sean Murphy?
Rick Remender is the writer. Sean Murphy is the artist.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I think because it's got that sort of manga kind of feel to it, you know, because with Sean Murphy's art, I think to me kind of fits, you know, it might fit the world of manga pretty well, but I think you'd like that.
Hell yeah. I got it right here.
It's only 2 volumes, I think.
Yeah.
And not like friggin' Urasawa volumes.
No, like graphic novel volumes type of deal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can rip through that.
Yeah, you read that thing in a fucking day. Both between the 2 volumes.
Oh, I flew through it. I'm trying to check and see if it's on Hoopla or not.
Yeah. So anytime any of you or any of your listeners or anything have questions or want recommendations on different types of anime and manga, you send them my way. Like I said, I have a whole list, and I'm currently in an anime that is in progress. One that just started. And then I'm also going to I'm trying to jump into different genres even more and kind of expand my horizons some more. So I'm going to continue to do that as well.
So where can the people find you on Twitter, Shime, before we get into catching up?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at ShimeTime. I'm on Instagram at ShimeTime12 because some dodo took ShimeTime, even though his last name isn't Shime. I don't get it, don't understand it, but at the same time, I don't have the ability to get that account because I'm not rich or famous.
It's probably Friar's burner account.
Yeah, right. The best way to find me is on Twitter at ShimeTime for sure.
That is bullshit. I think I heard that before. I forgot though. But okay, so real quick, we did want to do a little bit of catching up. Joe and I were supposed to skip catching up, but Joe, of course, can't contain himself, and you wanted to share what you've been catching up on, Joe. So what do you got for me?
Well, because I wanted the people to get as much Shime as possible, and I asked Shime,
Joe. I appreciate
had he been reading any comics or anything of interest. So
he wanted it, and now he said, "Fuck it, I want to talk about the books I've been catching up on."
Yeah, well, it's just one, and it's gonna be brief, Nicholas. So again, calm your tits. Know Your Station #1 from Boom Studios, right? So this was a wild book for me. I did not like it until the end.
Oh shit! Okay,
right. And so this, and specifically, what I didn't like about it, I didn't like the lettering. This is an instance we had been talking about this lately, where we don't really, a good letterer is like an offensive lineman. If they're doing their job, you're not really paying attention to it. It's just part of the thing. And so it was so narration and dialogue, and like there was so much information coming at you, and the way it was laid out, like I almost put this thing down. And then I kept, but I was like, no, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm in fucking dance class. What else am I gonna do? Waiting for Violet to finish. So I finish it, and so I get to the end, and I go, oh, this is really fucking good. Now I'm in. Like again, it did its job. It got its hooks in me because and it's hard. It's a murder mystery, and you've got a really fucked up main character. And I loved it, but man, oh man, I almost put it down because it was like there was so much coming at you from a dialogue perspective and the way it was laid out. I go, I don't feel like fucking. This is giving me a headache.
So I don't blame you on any of that. But like that story. The story, honestly, in the end, is kind of lucky that the moment that you were in. And maybe you know what, maybe you end up really liking it and talking about it more in the show and help people realize like, no, it's something that's worth powering through. But was it more, Joe? Was it the layout and how much dialogue / narration? Okay, so it was like a bit of the writing on top of the actual lettering too.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was tough. Yeah, I shouldn't have put it solely on the letterer, but
no, but I hear you.
It just took me out of it. I'm just like, oh Christ! Like sometimes it's what you don't say, right? That's important, and it didn't give the reader a chance to breathe because your eyes are constantly scanning text, so you couldn't even appreciate the art that was going on, in the panels. You're just like, what the? And I'm like, thank fucking Christ, I don't have anything else to read right now. I need to kill some time because I probably would have stopped reading it had I had a physical floppy in my hand.
That's something else. That's rough. As for me, I just have Canary issue 4. I'll be talking about that show on the show at length when the final arc is done, and we'll probably wait until it's coming out through Dark Horse and everything. Of course, Scott Snyder and Dan Panosian absolutely crushing it. Shime, we wanted to hear what you've been reading though, outside of your manga, or you could maybe something manga, but also not George R.R. Martin stuff because obviously we know you'd be lying.
God damn it. I'm so mad that he doesn't have anything out. But no, so what I am reading right now, I'm actually reading a book called The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. It's part of the King Killer Chronicles. I'm a big fantasy book guy. I always have been. Those are the kind of books that I just gravitate towards when I actually want to sit down and read a novel. And this was recommended to me by my good buddy, Nicky Fats, Nick Catania. Doc knows him very well.
Fat stinks.
And Fats is my boy, and he is a big reader. He reads more than just about anybody I know, actually, when it comes to like actual novels. He reads a ton. So he recommended this to me. And so I'm knee deep in this. I'm enjoying it. I haven't gotten to the point of love yet, but I'm also I still haven't quite cracked into it, the bulk of the story, I don't think yet. And then the other thing I'm reading is DC versus Zombies, which is awesome, or DC versus Vampires. Sorry, Zombies. DC versus Vampires, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it. It's a cool story. I love DC does this better than anybody, which is just like those random side stories, whether it's Deceased or DC versus Vampires or whatever. It's just, I love it. It's so much fun. It's such a good read. It's so well done. The fact that you had to piss on Swamp Thing to get him back, it made me laugh. Yes. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm so into this.
So a couple things. One, and Joe, I think you're going to back me up on this. If you like what DC does, and then knowing you're a big fantasy guy, but you love what they do on these little like random side things, you got to read Dark Knight's Metal. Is just Dark Knight's Metal, Joe? No, that's not Dark Knight's Metal. What is it? No,
Dark Knights of Steel.
Yeah, Dark Knights of Steel. So I've read the first issue or two. So I understand the situation. I got to the point where am I allowed to spoil?
Yeah. It's been out long enough.
Yes.
I've gotten to the point where Bruce was taken in by the Kents.
Oh yeah.
So that's where I am.
That's one of the first couple issues, I think. Maybe not.
No, I think it's like issue 2. It gets wild, man.
Oh yeah.
What was the last part? I think the very last thing I saw was Bruce was riding Beast Boy. Beast Boy was a dragon.
Yeah,
and that's dope. Like that's so cool. I'm so into that. Yeah.
Taylor's interpretation
is awesome.
Taylor's interpretation of these characters and how he sort of intermingled them and fit them in this fantasy world. Like, keep reading, Shine, because there's a moment where something happens. You just go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It comes out of nowhere and and then it just keeps going, man.
And the cool thing about those side stories is that they don't have to worry about killing off people and making up for it later. So just at any random point, somebody could just explode or their heart gets ripped out or it's awesome. I love that about those stories.
Some of those things may or may not happen if you keep reading it. It's fucking nuts. But DC versus, and the artist on that series primarily has been Yasmin Putri, who has a very like elegant style and everything, and
it's
very
really cool,
amazing finish. But then we go over to DC versus Vampires, where it's Rosenberg and Tynan who wrote it, and then Otto Schmidt is the artist, and he has more of the Sean Murphy kind of style where it's like,
Like
a little
gritty.
bit more sketchy,
Yeah.
gritty, nasty, and everything. And I love it. I think he draws Green Arrow better than anybody. Like
He's
my
really
Green
good.
Arrow. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's an awesome Green Arrow. I also the other one I wanted to pick up was I think it's also another Sean Murphy. Was
White
it like
Knight.
White Knight Beyond, right? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was the other one I wanted to take a look at because
So have you read
into
the other White Knight
anything-
books?
I have. So and I am
Okay.
into anything that involves Terry McGinnis. Anything. So
Yeah. So what I'll say about this series is that I think we both enjoyed it. I liked the other two White Knight books better, but
Mhm.
I think this book's strong suit was the way that it sort of finishes.
Cool.
It's got a better
real good finish.
It's got a better it's got a better finish than a slow start.
When Joe, he'll also be the beneficiary of like waiting where we've had this
he'll
long
be able to
pause.
read it all at once, so that'll probably be a much better experience for you.
Mhm.
There's also 2 Red Hood tie-in books, which you can actually skip those. That Red
Sadly.
story didn't really need it. But yeah, I think because I was talking to Nick about this book, and I go, oh, okay, because I was kind of down on it, and I go, oh, I really liked that. I really loved how it ended. So
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so good stuff on DC versus Vampires. Really glad you like that. Yeah, let us know like when you catch up on Dark Knights of Steel. God, I keep wanting to say
I absolutely
metal.
will. Because for those of you who didn't know, I absolutely love medieval literature. That's what I studied in college. That is my forte. That is the stuff I love. So when you can combine medieval stuff with Batman, I am all the way fucking in.
Yeah, there's they got to be making some like stuff from McFarlane with like Batman and
oh, that would be
that.
dope as shit.
Yeah, because I just saw what was the Gladiator one that they did, and it looked kind of medievally to me. Well, it was him and a big axe, but they do so much crazy shit over there. So I'm sure they'll come up with something.
And if you haven't been reading Nightwing, you should be reading Nightwing.
Yeah, so I stopped a while ago.
Rick Grayson.
No, I stopped after that. It was a new villain that was introduced, Heart something.
Yeah,
maybe.
Oh yeah.
So I stopped right there. I don't know why. I for whatever reason I had stopped right there. Yeah, I was told that it's fantastic. I need to get back.
It is.
Nightwing's my absolute favorite. So I will eventually get right back into that.
Yeah, that's Tom Taylor's done a really, really good job with it. There was that an individual issue too where they did it panelist, which I think you missed that.
Yeah,
I must have. Yeah,
it's an interesting experience. It's like the story itself of that issue is like very simple, but like that the whole experience of like having just no panels throughout all of it was kind of nuts.
Hell
yeah, get back on that shit. But thank you, Shine, for taking some time to talk with us. Maybe we'll do something again with you. We do some more manga stuff down the line.
Oh, please. My pleasure. Anytime, boys.
And Joe, until next week when we're doing our holiday gift guide episode, until then, stay sexy.
You know I will. In my what are those nude pajamas? Maybe I should wear those next week.
Oh my, what is going on?
Okay. What's the commercial for on all the radio stations?
Oh, Pajamagram?
Yes, there we go.
Oh, wow.
You're gonna hit end, right?
Oh,